October 22, 1983, two prison guards were murdered that same day. The killers, Thomas Silverstein and Clayton Fountain, members of the Aryan Brotherhood, unknowingly triggered a new era of prison security and punishment through their actions. This would lead to the creation of what became known as America's Hell on Earth, changing their lives forever. So here are 5 gangs who messed with the wrong prison guards.
A member of the Universal Aryan Brotherhood gang pleaded guilty to racketeering and kidnapping. Charles McCulley admitted committing various crimes like murder, home invasions, and drug deals for the benefit of the gang.
A man who was part of the reason the Supermax prison was built has died.
67-year-old Thomas Silverstein died this month. He was in intensive care following a surgery earlier this year.
October 27, 1983, the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, stood as the nation's most secure prison. Yet even its formidable walls couldn't contain the violence brewing inside. That day, 2 Aryan Brotherhood members, Thomas Silverstein and Clayton Fountain, committed acts that would forever change how America deals with its most dangerous inmates. The Aryan Brotherhood wasn't just a white supremacist gang. By the early 1980s, it had evolved into a ruthless criminal syndicate operating both inside and outside prison walls. Their motto, blood in, blood out. Joining required drawing blood, leaving meant death. Despite making up just 1% of the prison population, they were responsible for 18% of all prison murders. Both Silverstein and Fountain were already notorious. Silverstein, known as Terrible Tom, was a shot caller for the Brotherhood. He'd arrived in prison for bank robbery, but soon racked up additional murder convictions inside. Fountain entered prison for killing his Marine Corps commanding officer, then murdered 3 prisoners while incarcerated. By 1983, both were housed in Marion's Control Unit, a virtual solitary confinement regime reserved for the most violent inmates. Tensions between white and black prison gangs had reached a boiling point. In 1981, Silverstein and Fountain were convicted of murdering Robert Chappelle, a member of the DC Blacks prison gang. But the real powder keg was their ongoing feud with Raymond Cadillac Smith, the national leader of the DC Blacks. When Smith was transferred to Marion, prison logs show he immediately began plotting to kill Silverstein. Silverstein later claimed, "Everyone knew what was going on, and no one did anything to keep us apart. The guards wanted one of us to kill the other." On September 27, 1982, Silverstein and Fountain struck first. They stabbed Smith 67 times, then dragged his body up and down the cell block for all to see. But the violence didn't stop there. Silverstein believed guard Merle Klutz was deliberately harassing him, destroying his artwork, and making life unbearable. On October 22, 1983, Silverstein saw his chance. While being escorted to the shower, another inmate slipped him a homemade knife and handcuff key. Silverstein stabbed Klutz repeatedly, killing him. Just hours later, Fountain used the same tactic to kill another guard, Robert Hoffman. These murders were unprecedented. As Attorney General William French Smith stated, "These inmates were already serving life sentences in the disciplinary section of the most maximum security prison in the country. They knew there was nothing else the federal prison system could do to them. They knew they had nothing to lose." The Federal Bureau of Prisons responded with immediate and drastic measures. Both men were placed in extreme isolation, cells stripped bare, with lights on 24/7, and no contact with the outside world. For 9 months, their only human interaction was with silent guards delivering meals. The consequences of their actions were far-reaching. Marion entered permanent lockdown, becoming the prototype for modern supermax prisons. Security protocols changed nationwide, requiring 3 officers, handcuffs, and belly chains whenever high-risk inmates were moved. The era of rehabilitation gave way to a focus on control and punishment. Silverstein spent 36 years in solitary confinement, the longest in federal history. Fountain was isolated for 21 years before dying in 2004. Their cases became the justification for building ADX Florence, the nation's first supermax prison designed for total isolation. The Aryan Brotherhood's reach continued to spread. By the 21st century, they boasted 20,000 members inside and outside prison, operating as a mafia-style syndicate. Their criminal enterprises included extortion, drug trafficking, gambling, and murder for hire. Despite their white supremacist ideology, They often partnered with minority-led gangs for profit. Their legacy is complex. While the supermax system they spawned may have reduced prison violence, it raised serious questions about human rights and the effectiveness of extreme isolation. As former Bureau of Prisons Director Norman Carlson later admitted, "I don't know what else could have been done to prevent further violence by a man who had nothing to lose." The Aryan Brotherhood story isn't just about gang violence. It's a tale of how America's prison system responded to its most dangerous inmates and the lasting impact of those decisions on incarceration practices nationwide. But if you think their reign of terror was terrifying, wait until you hear how another gang tried to challenge the system and paid the ultimate price.
City Police's effort now to dismantle the Black Gorilla family continues at this hour.
Officials took another big step this morning when they conducted several early morning raids.
A member of the Black Gorilla family gang was sentenced to life in prison. 26-year-old Marquise McCants of Baltimore was convicted by a federal jury of racketeering and drug conspiracy.
April 23, 2013, a federal indictment drops, revealing an entire prison system compromised from within. 13 correctional officers, all linked to the Black Gorilla family, faced charges alongside gang members. The inmates had taken over the asylum. The Black Gorilla family, often called BGF, wasn't born in a Baltimore jail. It began in 1966 at San Quentin State Prison, California. Founded by George Jackson, W.L. Nolan, and George Big Jake Lewis, it started as a revolutionary organization during the Black Power movement with explicit goals to promote black dignity and overthrow the U.S. government. But over time, those political ambitions twisted into something much darker. By 2009, BGF controlled the Baltimore City Detention Center, BCDC, and several connected facilities, including the Baltimore Central Booking Intake Center, the Women's Detention Center, and the Jail Industries Building. Their reach was absolute. The indictment later revealed BGF had turned these detention centers into criminal safe havens, operating drug trafficking, robbery, assault, extortion, bribery, witness retaliation, money laundering, and even obstruction of justice, all from inside the prison walls. How did a prison gang seize such power? Corruption. BGF infiltrated the very system meant to contain them. 13 correctional officers, both men and women, became part of their criminal conspiracy. It wasn't just turning a blind eye. These officers smuggled drugs, cell phones, and other contraband directly through the main entrances. They arranged for favored treatment, warned inmates about upcoming searches, and even became long-term partners with BGF members. The rot went deep. BGF leader Tavon White, known as Bulldog, openly declared, "This is my jail. I'm dead serious. I make every final call in this jail, and nothing goes past me. Everything comes to me." His word was law. Anyone wanting to settle a score or commit violence had to get his approval. White didn't just rule with fear. He used contraband cell phones to coordinate everything from the collection of fees and taxes to smuggling operations and internal disputes. The corruption wasn't subtle. White had sexual relationships with 4 female correctional officers, impregnating each at least once. 2 tattooed his name on their bodies. He supplied 3 with luxury cars, and another with a diamond ring. The officers became willing accomplices, smuggling contraband, warning of searches, and even standing guard, while other officers had sex with inmates. The operation was organized. BGF used green dot cash cards to pay for contraband and launder proceeds. Trusted inmates called working men controlled the flow of goods inside, and outside suppliers kept the system stocked. Corrupt officers arranged payments, and BGF used some profits to support their street operations outside prison. But their arrogance grew with their power. On January 5, 2013, White boasted in a phone call, "My word is law. So if I told any motherfucker they had to do this, hit a police, do this, call a motherfucker, do anything, it got to get done, period." He felt untouchable. The turning point came when investigators from the Maryland Prison Task Force discovered the full scope of BGF's control. Secretary Gary Maynard from the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services assembled 30 trusted officers from outside Baltimore. Working with federal agents, they conducted coordinated surprise searches on February 14, 2013. The evidence was overwhelming. The fallout was massive. 25 people, 10 men and 15 women, were indicted, including 13 correctional officers. The charges included racketeering, drug trafficking, money laundering, and more. The indictment sought $500,000 in forfeitures, including the luxury cars bought with criminal proceeds. The system was shaken to its core, but the damage was done. BGF control exposed deep vulnerabilities in prison systems across the country. The scandal forced massive reforms, and today Maryland's prisons operate under much stricter controls. But the lesson remains clear. When prison guards become the criminals, the system collapses from within. And if you think that's the end of BGF's story, think again. Their influence still echoes through Maryland's prisons, but the next gang on our list is far, far worse than the BGF.
So we began with breaking news in the prison stabbing of Derek Chauvin.
New court documents show an inmate and former Mexican gang member stabbed him 22 times. Chauvin is serving more than 20 years for the murder of George Floyd.
August 16, 2025. Calipatria State Prison erupts in chaos as a notorious inmate launches a violent attack on correctional staff. What started as a routine day quickly spiraled into a dangerous confrontation with one of California's most feared prison gangs, the Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, is more than just a prison gang. It's a powerful criminal organization that wields influence both inside and outside prison walls. Founded in 1957 at Duell Vocational Institution by Luis Oero Buff Flores, the gang grew by recruiting members from established Hispanic street gangs in Los Angeles. This gang of gangs quickly became a dominant force in California's prison system, controlling narcotics trafficking and other illegal activities behind bars. Their reach extends far beyond prison. As members were paroled, they spread the gang's influence into hundreds of street gangs across Los Angeles and Southern California. Thousands of affiliated members, known as Sureños, now operate under the Mexican Mafia's control, paying tribute to the organization and following its orders. The tension at Calipatria State Prison had been building for weeks. Mexican Mafia-affiliated inmates had been growing increasingly hostile towards staff, their aggression boiling just beneath the surface. Gang politics demanded that members protect each other at all costs, creating a powder keg atmosphere inside the facility. On that August morning, correctional officers were dealing with an uncooperative inmate named Alfred Ortega, a known Mexican Mafia member. Standard procedure required placing him in restraints, a routine task that would soon become anything but ordinary. As officers attempted to restrain Ortega, he exploded in violence, attacking a correctional sergeant with his fists. The assault was brutal and unprovoked, catching staff off guard. But the danger didn't stop there. Prison gang politics demanded an immediate response from other members. Two more affiliated inmates, Arroyo and Vital, attempted to rush into the housing unit to attack staff and protect Ortega. The situation threatened to spiral out of control, with multiple attackers converging on the officers. Only the quick deployment of pepper spray stopped the assault from escalating further. The aftermath was immediate and severe. The attack sergeant required hospitalization for injuries sustained in the assault. Meanwhile, Mexican Mafia-affiliated inmates began loudly threatening custody staff, making it clear that the violence could continue at any moment. Tensions reached a boiling point, with staff now facing open hostility and threats from one of the most dangerous gangs in the prison system. The incident at Calipatria wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a larger pattern of violence and intimidation by the Mexican Mafia within California's prisons. Their control extends through fear, violence, and a strict code of silence. The attack sent a clear message to both staff and rival gangs. The Mexican Mafia remains a powerful force willing to use violence to maintain its authority. But the violence didn't stop with the staff assault. Mexican Mafia-affiliated inmates continued to escalate tensions, threatening further attacks and creating an atmosphere of constant danger within the facility. Staff had to remain vigilant, knowing that any moment could bring another outbreak of violence. The Mexican Mafia controls territories around Los Angeles, dictates the activities of local affiliated gangs, and collects taxes from those allowed to operate in their territory. Their influence is felt in prisons and on the streets, making them one of the most formidable criminal organizations in the United States. The attack at Calipatria State Prison is just one example of how prison gangs like the Mexican Mafia maintain control through violence and intimidation. But if you think this was intense, Wait until you see what happens when a different gang tries to challenge the authority of correctional staff.
The Virginia Department of Corrections is investigating an alleged premeditated stabbing of 3 corrections officers at Wallens Ridge State Prison in Wise County. 2 other officers suffered minor injuries in the attack.
May 2nd, 2025, Wallens Ridge State Prison, Virginia. A routine morning suddenly erupts into chaos as inmates launch a brutal, coordinated attack on prison staff. The assailants? Members of one of America's most feared gangs, MS-13. Originating in Los Angeles during the 1980s, MS-13, short for Mara Salvatrucha, began as a protection network for Salvadoran immigrants, but it quickly evolved into a transnational criminal powerhouse spanning North and Central America. The gang's signature? Extreme violence, strict loyalty, and a ruthless code of silence. Inside Wallens Ridge, trouble had been brewing for months. Authorities housed 5 confirmed MS-13 members from El Salvador, each serving lengthy sentences for heinous crimes, including aggravated murder and rape. The 6th inmate, a U.S.-born Sureño 13 gang member, completed the deadly alliance. Together they formed a volatile mix, fueled by gang loyalty and prison hierarchy. The attack was meticulously planned. Corrections officials later described it as premeditated, with every detail calculated to inflict maximum damage. At 9:45 a.m., the gang members struck. Multiple officers were ambushed. 3 were stabbed repeatedly. 2 others suffered serious injuries as they rushed to help their comrades. Emergency medical teams rushed the victims to outside hospitals. 3 officers, including 2 with minor wounds, were released later that day, but 2 remained hospitalized in stable condition, their recovery uncertain. MS-13's violent reputation is well established. From its origins protecting Salvadoran immigrants in Los Angeles, the gang now boasts 30,000 to 50,000 members worldwide. Their activities? Drug and weapons trafficking, murder, extortion, and more. They're known for extreme brutality, preferencing machetes over guns, and a chilling disregard for human life. The Wallens Ridge attack wasn't just another prison fight. It was a calculated assault on authority. Corrections. Director Chad Dotson didn't mince words.
This attack is an example of the dangers our officers face every day. Our officers are heroes, and I commend the team at Wallens Ridge for their swift response.
5 of the attackers were in the U.S. illegally. All 6 had already been convicted of violent crimes. Their willingness to target correctional staff, despite facing life sentences, demonstrated MS-13's complete disregard for consequences. The immediate aftermath was tense. Prison staff implemented emergency protocols. Security tightened across Virginia's correctional system. Gang intelligence units launched thorough investigations, searching for signs of further coordinated violence. Attorney General Jason Miyares emphasized the daily risks faced by corrections officers.
These indictments are an important reminder that service by our law enforcement and corrections officers across the Commonwealth is not without daily risk.
The 6 attackers now faced a staggering 66 felony charges. Each charge represented another step toward justice for the injured officers. Wallens Ridge wasn't just any prison. It's a super maximum security facility designed to contain the most dangerous inmates. Yet even here, MS-13 managed to orchestrate a brazen attack. Corrections staff across Virginia took notice. Training protocols were reviewed. Security procedures tightened. Wallens Ridge became a flashpoint in the ongoing battle between prison staff and violent gangs. The attack highlighted the constant danger corrections officers face. Every day, they walk into environments where violence can erupt without warning. As the investigation continued, authorities monitored gang communications closely. The risk of retaliatory violence loomed large. Prison officials worked overtime to prevent further incidents. Yet even as the legal process moved forward, the scars remained. The injured officers faced long recoveries, physical and psychological. Their colleagues stood united, vowing to maintain order despite the constant threat. MS-13's Wallens Ridge attack was more than a violent outburst. It was a calculated assault on the justice system itself. But the response was swift and decisive. The gang's message was clear, but so was the system's resolve. But if MS-13 thought they could intimidate the system, they were wrong. The Wallens Ridge attack only strengthened resolve. Security tightened, protocols updated. The battle continues, but the defenders stand ready. But the story doesn't end here. If you think this was intense, wait until you see how another notorious gang tried to challenge the system, only to face an even harsher response. March 12, 2018. Victor Coronado, a 50-year-old with the Texas Syndicate's Longhorns tattooed across his face, stood in plain view, swinging a knife and daring anyone to stop him. He'd already hurled the blade at a car stopped at a red light, then picked it up and continued his threatening display. It was an open invitation for trouble, and law enforcement quickly obliged. The Texas Syndicate is no ordinary prison gang. Founded in 1978 in California's Folsom State Prison, it was created by Texan inmates to protect themselves from predatory gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia. What began as a self-defense pact quickly evolved into a strict paramilitary-style organization, complete with its own constitution, elected leadership, and ironclad rules. On the streets, their influence stretches from Austin to Corpus Christi, the Rio Grande Valley, and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The gang comes before family, faith, or anything else. The Syndicate's strict discipline is legendary. Their golden rule is simple: betray us, and you're dead. This isn't an empty threat. Over the past decade, members have carried out at least 50 murders, many of them fellow members who broke the code of silence or crossed the wrong person. Bodies have turned up across Texas, victims of extortion, kidnappings, and contract hits. Their enforcement extends even to family matters. Prison officials recognize the Syndicate as one of a dozen especially dangerous gangs. Members like Mike Mendoza Jr., a second-generation Syndicate enforcer, are locked in cells 23 hours a day. Mendoza, serving life for murder, explains their philosophy bluntly. "We don't harm innocent people, man. We don't tolerate none of our members who do that." But their definition of innocent is narrow. Anyone who betrays them becomes fair game. The Syndicate's business operations are as organized as its internal structure. They act as subcontractors for Mexican cartels, moving drugs and enforcing territory. Their other specialty is home invasions, targeting rival dealers and anyone who owes them money. Released members must pay a 10% tax on all earnings back to the prison-based leadership. Their constitution's 22 rules are enforced by a president, vice president, and a hierarchy of local chairmen, captains, and soldiers. Leadership changes require unanimous votes, and new members undergo strict background checks to prevent informants from infiltrating. But in recent years, the Syndicate's carefully maintained discipline has begun to crack. Older members complain about a new breed of younger gangsters who disregard tradition and attract unwanted attention. Arnold Darby, one of the few white members ever accepted, laments the decline in character among recruits. "The class and character of the members they bring in now is nothing like it was," says Darby, now serving 2 life sentences for murder. This breakdown in discipline came to a head on that March day in 2018, when a Harris County Sheriff's deputy confronted Victor Coronado, who charged at the deputy, swinging his knife in open defiance of both law enforcement and Syndicate protocol. The deputy responded with a stun gun, quickly subduing Coronado and arresting him for aggravated assault of a public servant. Coronado's reckless behavior flew in the face of everything the Texas Syndicate stands for. Their rules are designed to keep members out of the spotlight, avoiding unnecessary attention from police and prison authorities. His public outburst not only landed him in jail, but also violated the gang's strict code of conduct. This incident highlighted a growing problem within the Syndicate. As older members age out or die off, younger recruits seem less willing to follow the old rules. Law enforcement officials note that new members are more likely to take plea deals and cooperate with authorities, undermining the gang's code of silence. The once feared organization is losing its grip on both discipline and loyalty. But the Syndicate remains dangerous, even as discipline erodes. Their involvement with Mexican cartels gives them access to resources and firepower. Their structure, though weakened, still allows for coordinated criminal activity across multiple states. The cost of membership is high. Mendoza, the lifer in solitary, sums it up.
"I done lost everything for it, even though they are considered criminals and that kind of stuff. The ones I grew up with, it was all about respect.
But respect alone can't maintain order in an organization built on fear and violence. The syndicate's days of unchecked power may be numbered, but their legacy of discipline and brutality still casts a long shadow over Texas prisons. As for Victor Coronado, his impulsive attack on a deputy didn't just land him back in jail. It marked a turning point in the syndicate's history, a public display of defiance that showed just how far the gang has fallen from its disciplined roots.